is I want to be able to ask a couple questions that I think are really probably timely and important for everybody to consider, and would love to have Yesenia and Heidi and Jennifer's thoughts on it. So just really off the bat, I think, Jennifer, you kind of hit on this as you were ending, so that's probably a good segue into this question. How has Scribble been used or been helpful during the shift to remote and hybrid instruction during the pandemic? I think you've kind of maybe already answered that to a degree, but welcome to say more if you like, or if Heidi and Yesenia wanted to speak to that, because I know that's the reality that everybody in Utah is living in, just like everybody else across the country at the moment.
Yeah, so Jennifer mentioned the concept of budget, and I was just thinking about how my school is saving money from me this year, because part of the AP seminar exam starts in January when we return from winter break, and College Board will release like an 80-page PDF. And typically, to try and lower the stress levels of the students, I would ask the school to print them. And so they would go to graphics, right? And they were gorgeous, and they walked around like they had these sacred texts, but that would put my department back like multiple hundreds of dollars. And so that was kind of like my one ask for the year that I could really afford to ask for. And now, of course, I just get to push it out this way. And so it's still the students, right? Like it's still theirs to annotate and for them to work up to whatever degree they need to. But again, like I'm not messing with anyone's budget, so.
Same here. Well, we're now one-to-one. We were starting to do that, but COVID sort of forced us to go one-to-one instead of rolling it out. And I'll say now also while we're remote, I didn't hand out any textbooks or any supplemental novels because I didn't have enough due to budget. And being the English department, we rotate our texts because we just buy class sets. So being able to have Scribble and push PDFs onto our Scribble library and have kids annotate has been very beneficial and has been helpful. So because everything is available to them on the library, and then teachers could just have the kids copy that library over. And like I said, even pre-COVID, this would have been wonderful because we didn't have to then carry around all those note cards because we were definitely old school and or those sources. So having that alone, where you could just turn on your computer and have that all there has been wonderful.
Great, thank you. If you all don't mind, I'm gonna, Jennifer, since you've already spoken to that a little bit, maybe I'll ask you the next question, because I think that's a concern for a lot of people these days about learning anything new. So maybe Jennifer can lead off if you have any thoughts on this. Right now, it's a great time of stress and anxiety for folks. People have very limited bandwidth. So do you have any tips on how teachers can leverage the benefits of Scribble without feeling overwhelmed? I mean, any of you can answer, but I was going to give the mic first to Jennifer if she wanted.
I kind of feel like it was really well received because we were in such a panic about how we were going to get text to students, that once they realized they had Scribble and, I can just put it in my library and share my library with my entire class. Oh, okay. And Scribble is so easy to use that this did not feel too overwhelming for teachers. Canvas felt overwhelming for teachers at the very beginning of the school year, and I think we're still struggling. But really and truly, because my teachers were in such a panic about how they were going to get text in their students' hands, once I showed them Scribble and loomed a quick video of how you could click your toolbar and it's in your library and now you share it with students, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm 2 clicks away of getting a text in front of my students. This is amazing. Thank you. So I think it was very well received, and it did not feel overwhelming because Scribble is very user friendly.
Thank you. Yesenia, Heidi, any thoughts on that?
My teachers, they were definitely, they were scared about how they were going to do research. That was one of the biggest things. Like, they just didn't know how we were just going to tackle that. So when I introduced them to Scribble, they were like, this is great. So They were really receptive to wanting to use the platform and to learn more about it. But But like I always tell my department, baby steps. So like figure out how to do one thing with the program, and then we'll learn from there, because we'll do it. We're all in this together. So little by little.
Okay.
And I think mine, as I said in the chat, I think I've been most successful in showing my peers how I use it myself. I'm one of maybe 2 people on my campus who uses it, even though we have access to it, because a lot of people do kind of have that mindset that Victor just discussed, which is that this is another thing. And I think that it really isn't. It does have that integration with Google Classroom. So that's really helpful. And, Victor is always like really honest and really helpful talking about like what's coming down the pipeline in terms of like new features and things like that. And so obviously it's just going to get, better from where it is. But if you're like, I was going to say this earlier and I forgot, if you're like me and you write your own curriculum, you have 900 emails to yourself from yourself in your current email account. Right? And you have screenshots on your camera roll of things that you want to do. And you've maybe saved them to your notes app like a moody teenager. And then when it comes to actually trying to write your curriculum, you have to go through all of those piles of everything to try and remember what had you thought was interesting or useful or meaningful at some point, and then what are you going to do with it? And so instead, it's really nice just to have like your own Scribble curriculum library, and you can use your own outline. And you can toggle your sources around in the way that you want to push them out to your students in the future. I also have used them. I've lost 25% of my instructional teaching time with my students this year. And try as I might, they don't voluntarily show up to Zooms, no matter how engaging I am. And so, I have a library that I've shared with them that I put my annotated materials in. They largely come to, looking at the exam or kind of the ugly nitty gritty part of what College Board is. But I do that paired with a Loom. If I really want to get like onto accountability, I make that Loom into an ed puzzle. Make that into an ed puzzle. Then we have accountability all day, right? And then I know at the very least that my students are getting the materials that I need them to have. I just don't have the actual time in class to actually give them.
Fair enough. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the remaining questions, but I'm just going to ask maybe if you have closing thoughts. And then I'm happy to stick around and answer questions for the 20 diehard folks that are still on the call if they want to speak with you all, if you all have time. But any quick thoughts, Heidi, Yesenia, and Jennifer, to close out?
I was just going to say, Scribble has been great. My teachers have been creating how-to tutorials also for themselves and sharing that within the department. We've been using Scribble also for our professional learning communities. So they've been housing, since we're shifting our curriculum a little bit. They've been actually using and housing their library there and sharing that with their colleagues for the grade level curriculum revisions that we've been doing. So Scribble has multiple uses. It's not just, like you said, for research writing. So we're using it all around, teachers and students.
Yeah, and that hits on that third question, actually. So, using this for your own productivity and collaboration as opposed to only using it with students. So that's, thanks for highlighting that. That's great.
I even have friends that have heard me talk about Scribble, and they've gone out and purchased a subscription for their college age students, because they're like, my kid's not losing a point over not putting 2 spaces after a period on their bibliography page. So I've had some colleagues purchase it for themselves because they're working on, a PhD or something like that, or they've wanted it for their college age students.
Great to know.
And the last thing that I wanted to say, and I think it was Jennifer and Yesenia who actually brought up the concept of the tools, is that we often think of the read aloud tools and the defining tools as being scaffolds for students who are in special populations that need them to build language acquisition. But I think it's so cool to watch students who use the tools for other reasons. I have a student who is pursuing, he wants to pursue biology when he goes to university. And so he's reading these really cool academic texts for his research paper. And he'll tell me that in the past that he would be dissuaded from pursuing them because he would have to open up extra tabs and write down the definitions of what they meant. And then he would have to like reread and meditate upon it. And now he can do it all within the same window. And so it doesn't really scare him away. away from learning these new highly rigorous concepts that he previously would have been scared away from.
We try to design that stuff with the UDL frame mindset, right? The universal design for learning. So I love hearing about those kinds of examples that are not what you necessarily expect, but that there's broader application there. So that's great. All right, we are way over on time. I want to thank everybody for hanging out as long as they have.